The long scar on Malik Thorne's neck twitched when Giselle Montgomery slapped his square face at the Obsidian Lounge. The defense tech billionaire had no idea she just assaulted a former Delta Force Master Sergeant. Just because 5-year-old Ruby's matcha spilled on her $5, 500-ball mash shoes, Giselle used her power to crush the father and daughter. Malik held back his combat instincts to protect his daughter's peaceful childhood, only wanting a simple, polite apology. But Giselle's arrogance turned this conflict into a deadly war against the entire national security system. Facing hidden killers and total isolation, can Malik protect his little family when the enemy's bodyguard starts staring at his scar? But before that slap cracked through the quiet air of the lounge, the morning had started much softer than that. In a small rented apartment on the south edge of Atlanta, Malik Thorne knelt on the kitchen floor. His rough fingers, marked with old calluses, worked slowly through his daughter's hair. Ruby sat still on a wooden stool. She hummed a tune from her favorite cartoon. "Hold still, baby girl," Malik said. His voice was low and steady. "One more braid, and we're done." Ruby giggled. "You always say one more, Daddy." Malik smiled. He tied the last braid with a small purple band. On the counter sat an old ceramic jar. Inside it were exactly $14.50, saved from small mechanic jobs at a garage nearby. That money was for Ruby's treat today, a croissant after her dentist visit. Malik worked with his hands now. He fixed engines, patched brakes, and welded broken frames. His income was thin some weeks, but every dollar he earned went toward Ruby's small joys. Around her neck, Ruby wore a thin silver chain. A tiny ceramic charm shaped like a butterfly hung from it. It was the only thing left from her mother, who had died 3 years earlier from a sudden illness. Malik touched the charm gently before Ruby stood up. Outside their window, a garbage truck groaned down the narrow street. Someone's radio played old soul music through a cracked screen door. The smell of frying bacon drifted in from the neighbor's kitchen. It mixed with the faint scent of motor oil still clinging to Malik's shirt. Malik pulled a gray jacket off a wall hook. The fabric felt thin and soft from years of washing. A small tear near the left elbow had been stitched twice already. He zipped it up slowly, the metal teeth clicking one by one. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," Ruby shouted, grabbing her small backpack shaped like a ladybug. Nobody at the dentist's office knew who Malik really was. To them, he was just a quiet single father with tired eyes and a soft smile. They did not know he once led secret missions across dangerous deserts. They did not know he had saved dozens of soldiers under heavy gunfire. Malik kept that world locked away, buried under years of silence. He wanted one thing only. He wanted Ruby to grow up laughing, safe, and far from blood and smoke. After the dentist appointment, Ruby's tiny tooth got a clean bill of health. The dentist, a kind older woman, gave Ruby a small sticker shaped like a smiling tooth. Ruby wore it proudly on her sleeve the whole way out. She clapped her hands and asked for her promised treat. Malik remembered a bakery cafe near Midtown that his co-worker had mentioned once. It was called the Obsidian Lounge. "Is it fancy?" Ruby asked, swinging their joined hands as they walked down the sidewalk. "A little," Malik admitted, "but their croissants are supposed to be the best in the city." Ruby grinned wide. "And it's worth it." They walked 3 blocks under the warm Georgia sun, past busy office workers rushing to lunch meetings. Malik kept a steady pace, letting Ruby stop once to look at a fluffy dog trotting past on a leash. He had never been inside a place like that. Black marble floors gleamed under soft gold lighting. Glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the busy financial district outside. Servers moved quietly between polished brass tables. It felt like a world built for people far richer than Malik. Still, holding Ruby's small hand, Malik walked through the glass doors. Cold air from the ceiling vents brushed against his neck. The floor felt slick and cool even through his worn boots. Somewhere behind the counter, a milk steamer hissed in short, sharp bursts, like a small mechanical heartbeat. The air smelled like roasted coffee beans and fresh vanilla frosting. Soft jazz music played from hidden speakers. Ruby's eyes lit up when she saw the golden croissants inside a curved glass case. "Daddy, look, they have butterfly stickers on the box." Ruby pointed excitedly. Malik chuckled and guided her toward the counter. He counted out exact bills for a $4.75 croissant and a small cup of matcha tea for Ruby. The cashier handed them a warm paper bag and a cup with a plastic lid. At that same moment, sharp heels struck the marble floor like gunfire. Giselle Montgomery stormed into the lounge, phone pressed to her ear. She wore a tailored emerald suit that hugged her frame with sharp precision. Her voice cracked through the quiet space like a whip. "Tell the board I don't care about delays," she snapped into the phone. "That merger is worth $4,530,000. I want it signed by Friday." She barely looked up as she crossed the floor, heels clicking with fast, angry rhythm. Ruby, distracted by the croissant in her small hands, took a quick step backward. Her sneaker slid on a freshly mopped section of marble. She lost her balance for one short second. Her cup of matcha tea tipped forward. Green liquid splashed across the tip of Giselle's custom ball mat heels. "Worth exactly $5,500. Giselle froze mid-sentence. Her eyes dropped to her ruined shoes. Her nostrils flared. The blood rushed to her cheeks in a hot wave. "Are you kidding me?" she shouted, yanking the phone away from her ear. Instead of catching the falling child, Giselle kicked Ruby's small ladybug backpack across the floor. It skidded and hit a marble pillar with a soft thud. "You filthy little rats," Giselle spat. "Do you know how much these shoes cost? More than your father makes in a year, I bet." The entire cafe went silent. Forks stopped midair. A barista froze behind the counter, cloth still in hand. Ruby's lower lip trembled. Tears welled up fast in her wide brown eyes. She grabbed Malik's leg and pressed her face into his jeans. Something old and dangerous stirred inside Malik's chest. His jaw muscles tightened into hard knots. A vein pulsed once at his temple. In his mind, years of training flashed instantly. He could see 6 different ways to disable every person in that room within 5 seconds. But then he felt it. Ruby's small fingers, trembling, gripped his hand tightly. Malik exhaled slowly through his nose. He knelt down and wiped Ruby's tears with his thumb. "It's okay, baby girl," he whispered. "Daddy's here." Ruby's small voice broke through his thoughts. "Daddy, please don't fight. I don't want you to get hurt." Malik looked down at her, at the tiny butterfly charm resting against her collarbone. For a moment, he saw his late wife's calm smile in his daughter's worried eyes. He remembered a quiet promise made beside a hospital bed years ago, a promise to keep their daughter's world soft and safe. He understood something clearly in that instant. A real soldier's honor was not proven by breaking another person's wrist in anger. It was proven by staying gentle when every instinct screamed otherwise. He stood back up, tall and calm, and looked directly at Giselle. His voice stayed quiet, but it carried unmistakable weight. "You made my daughter cry," Malik said. "All I'm asking is a proper apology." Giselle laughed, sharp and cold. She looked him up and down, taking in his faded utility jacket and worn denim jeans. "An apology? To you?" she said, tilting her head. "People like you should be grateful I even let you breathe the same air as me." Malik's expression didn't change. "Just say sorry to my daughter. That's all." Giselle's cheeks flushed deeper red. She hated feeling challenged, especially in public. Her assistant once said she needed control the way other people needed oxygen. "You don't get to demand anything from me," she hissed. Then, without warning, she swung her open palm and struck Malik hard across the face. The sound cracked through the cafe like a gunshot. Heads turned. Cups froze halfway to mouths. Somewhere, a small espresso machine hissed quietly, the only sound left in the room. Malik's head barely moved. He stood like a carved statue, unshaken. A thin red mark bloomed on his cheek. Ruby wrapped both arms around his leg, sobbing quietly. "Daddy, please, let's just go. I don't want a croissant anymore." Malik looked down at his daughter. Her tiny butterfly charm glimmered under the lounge's golden light. For one heartbeat, he saw his late wife's soft eyes reflected in Ruby's face. He realized something in that instant. Real strength wasn't about breaking an arrogant woman's wrist. Real strength was staying calm, while holding his daughter's whole world together. He gently lifted Ruby into his arms and turned toward the glass doors. But freedom didn't come that easily. You think you can just walk out after ruining my shoes and disrespecting me? Giselle screamed behind him. She snapped her fingers at her personal security detail. A broad-shouldered man in a black suit and dark sunglasses stepped forward immediately. His name tag read Tyson Cole. He blocked the only exit with his wide frame. Malik stopped walking. He placed Ruby carefully behind a nearby bronze statue, out of harm's way. Then he turned to face the approaching guard. The air in the lounge grew thick and tense. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. A spoon clinked against a saucer somewhere near the window, then went silent. Nobody moved. Even the barista behind the counter stood frozen, a rag still pressed against the same clean spot on the counter. Tyson planted his feet wide, arms loose at his sides, ready to grab. His sunglasses hid his eyes completely, but his jaw was set hard, following orders without question. The cafe's manager, a nervous man with slicked-back hair, rushed over too. He wrung his hands and pointed accusingly at Malik. "Sir, you need to pay for damages," the manager stammered. $10,000. I'm calling the police right now." Malik looked at him steadily. "For a spilled cup of tea?" The manager glanced nervously at Giselle, clearly more afraid of losing her business than of doing what was right. The floor, the shoes, the disruption. "It all adds up, sir." Giselle crossed her arms, smirking with cruel satisfaction. She hurled insults about Malik's clothes, his job, and the color of his skin. Customers whispered nervously among themselves. Phones raised to record everything. "Look at him," Giselle said loudly, waving a hand toward Malik. "Standing there like he actually belongs in a place like this. People like you clean floors. You don't drink coffee on them." A few customers near the window shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One older woman opened her mouth, as if to speak, then looked away, saying nothing. Malik kept his eyes on Giselle, his voice calm. "Say what you want about me. Just don't touch my daughter again." Tyson Cole stepped closer, his voice firm. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them." Slowly, Malik raised both palms. His jacket collar shifted, revealing a long, jagged scar running from his ear down to his collarbone. Tyson's confident stance faltered instantly. His eyes locked onto that scar. His sunglasses slipped slightly down his nose. Memories rushed back hard and fast. A burning Humvee. Gunfire echoing across a dusty battlefield in Mosul back in 2018. A commanding officer, bleeding badly, still carrying him across a minefield to safety. Tyson ripped off his sunglasses completely. His hands trembled. "Master Sergeant Thorne," he whispered, voice cracking with disbelief. Malik's eyes narrowed slightly, studying the guard's face. Recognition slowly dawned on him, too. "Cole? Trooper Cole, from the 3rd Platoon?" Malik asked quietly. Tyson snapped instantly into a rigid salute, right hand pressed firmly to his brow. "Sergeant Thorne, sir. Corporal Cole reporting, sir." Giselle's mouth fell open. "What in the world are you doing?" Tyson spun around, ripping his earpiece out and throwing it to the floor. "I quit. Right now. I will never point a weapon at the man who saved my life." Giselle's face twisted with fury. Betrayed by her own guard in front of dozens of strangers, something inside her snapped completely. She yanked her phone back up, dialing furiously. Her fingers shook with rage as she pressed the device to her ear. "Captain Reeves, I need units at Obsidian Lounge immediately," she barked at the man on the other end. Captain Reeves was a police officer who took frequent payments from her company. "Arrest this man for armed terrorism and assault." Outside, distant sirens began wailing, growing louder with each passing second. Malik stood completely still. He held Ruby close, feeling her small heartbeat racing against his chest. Strangely, his own expression remained calm, almost peaceful, as though he already knew exactly how this story would end. 3 police cruisers screeched to a stop outside the glass doors. Blue and red lights swept across the black marble floor in slow, sweeping circles. Officers rushed in, with guns raised, following the corrupt captain's biased commands. Their boots pounded hard against the polished floor. Radios crackled with static. One officer shouted for everyone to get down, his voice sharp and shaking with adrenaline. They aimed directly at Malik's head, forcing him down onto his knees on the cold floor. The marble felt icy through his jeans. Somewhere nearby, a customer's phone camera light blinked red, still recording everything. Ruby screamed, clutching desperately at her father's neck. "Daddy, no. Please no." Malik's mind raced through every possible option. If he fought back against these dishonest officers, he would become a hunted criminal. Ruby would lose the only parent she had left. So Malik chose surrender instead. He lowered himself gently, wrapping one final protective arm around his daughter. "Don't be scared, sweetheart," he whispered into her ear. "Daddy's right here with you." Cold metal handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Giselle stood nearby, smiling with cruel triumph. She stepped forward and crushed Ruby's small ladybug backpack under her heel, grinding it into the marble floor. As officers dragged Malik toward the exit, a small crowd of onlookers filmed everything on their phones. Nobody dared step forward to help, except one person. Tyson Cole quietly activated a hidden body camera clipped inside his jacket. It had recorded everything, from the very first spilled cup of tea to this exact moment. He stepped behind a stone pillar, out of view, and pulled a small secure tablet from his bag. His fingers moved fast over the screen, faster than they had moved in years. Sweat gathered along his hairline despite the cool air of the lounge. Tyson had kept one old contact from his military days, a private channel used only for emergencies. He typed a short message, "Hand steady now," and attached the full video file. Using that encrypted channel, Tyson sent the footage directly to General Clinton Briggs at the Pentagon. General Briggs was currently reviewing Giselle's massive $4.5 billion defense contract. He also happened to respect Malik Thorne more than almost anyone alive. The message reached the general's secure phone in exactly 11 seconds. Briggs watched the entire clip twice, his face growing harder with every passing second. He set his coffee mug down without taking a single sip. That single video became the sword that would soon flip this entire nightmare upside down. At the local precinct, officers shoved Malik into a cold interrogation room. Thin fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A metal table sat bolted to the floor, its surface scratched from years of use. The room smelled faintly of old coffee and cleaning bleach. Malik sat in a hard plastic chair, wrists still raw from the handcuffs. He stared at a small mirror on the wall, knowing someone stood behind it, watching. His shoulders ached, but his face stayed calm. Giselle arrived shortly, after with a team of expensive lawyers trailing behind her. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile floor. The one shoe still bore a faint green stain near the toe. Her lead attorney slapped a folder onto the metal table. The sound echoed off the bare walls. "Sign this confession for extortion and public assault. 5 years in prison. Refuse, and we'll make sure your daughter ends up in state custody." The lawyer slid a pen across the table. It rolled to a stop just inches from Malik's fingers. Malik's chest tightened painfully at those words. Through a small window in the door, he spotted Ruby sitting alone on a hallway bench, clutching her mother's butterfly charm and crying softly. He faced the hardest choice of his entire life: sign a false confession or risk losing Ruby forever to strangers. Just then, the interrogation room door burst open violently. It wasn't the corrupt captain returning. Instead, a full squad of military police marched in, boots striking the tile in perfect rhythm, weapons ready, led personally by the Atlanta police chief. The lawyers stumbled back against the wall. One dropped his folder, papers scattering across the floor. The room suddenly felt much smaller than before. At the front stood General Clinton Briggs, for silver stars gleaming on his shoulders, medals lining his chest. His boots were polished to a hard shine, and his gray eyes swept the room once, taking in every detail. Giselle rushed toward him, believing he had come to rescue her. Her heels clicked fast against the floor, her voice bright with sudden relief. "General Briggs, thank goodness," she said breathlessly. "This man attacked me. He's dangerous." General Briggs raised one hand, cutting her off instantly without a single word spoken. He turned fully toward Malik and snapped into a sharp, formal salute. "Master Sergeant Thorne," Briggs said, voice heavy with respect. "This country owes you a debt it can never fully repay." Giselle's mouth opened, then closed again, confusion flooding her sharp features. The general lifted his secure phone and switched it to speaker mode. A stern voice from the Secretary of Defense filled the small room. "Effective immediately, Ether Defense's $4.5 billion contract is suspended indefinitely," the voice announced coldly. "A leader who shows no basic respect for a veteran and a 5-year-old child cannot be trusted with national security." Giselle's knees buckled slightly. Her carefully painted face drained of all color. Her fingers went cold around her phone, which slipped from her grip and clattered to the floor. The Atlanta police chief stepped forward next, ordering immediate handcuffs for both the corrupt captain and Giselle herself. His voice was flat and final, leaving no room for argument. Charges included bribery, false imprisonment, and public assault. Giselle collapsed onto the cold tile floor, her emerald suit smeared with dust and grime. Her polished face crumbled into raw panic. For the first time in her life, money meant absolutely nothing. She looked up at Malik, mouth opening as if to speak. No words came out. Her lawyers backed away toward the door. Her contract and her fortune had disappeared in a single phone call. Malik's handcuffs were removed gently. An officer offered a quiet, sincere apology, though Malik barely heard it. His eyes were fixed only on the hallway window, searching for Ruby. He rushed out and lifted his daughter into his arms. Ruby buried her face into his shoulder, finally letting relief replace her fear. "It's over, baby girl," Malik murmured against her hair. "We're safe now." Behind them, Tyson Cole waited quietly, hands in his pockets, a small proud smile tugging at his lips. He had officially resigned from Giselle's company that same afternoon. "Where will you go now, Sergeant?" Tyson asked. Malik managed a tired but genuine smile. "Home. Just home. Mind if I tag along sometime?" Tyson asked. "Someone's out to help you fix that old truck of yours." Malik chuckled softly, the sound rare and warm. "Yeah, I think Ruby would like that." They walked out together into the golden Atlanta evening light. Ruby, finally calm, pointed excitedly at a passing food truck selling ice cream. The evening air felt warm against Malik's skin, carrying the smell of grilled food from a nearby vendor cart. Traffic hummed softly in the distance, ordinary and unbothered, as if the whole world hadn't just tilted sideways for a few terrible hours. Ruby tugged at Malik's collar. "Can we get ice cream, Daddy? Please?" Malik reached into his pocket and felt the familiar ceramic jar coins he had tucked away that morning. He smiled down at her. "I think we've earned it, baby girl." Tyson bought 3 cones, handing one to Ruby with a wide grin. She took a big bite and hummed happily, chocolate already smudged on her chin. For a while, none of them spoke. They simply sat together on a low stone wall outside the precinct, watching cars pass and the sky shift into deep orange and soft purple. Months passed after that chaotic afternoon. Ether Defense collapsed entirely under the weight of lost contracts and public scandal. News reports covered the story for weeks, showing footage of the company's glass tower going dark floor by floor. Giselle Montgomery faced a suspended prison sentence, along with hundreds of hours of mandatory community service. Her lawyers had fought hard to keep her out of a real cell, but her name was ruined across every industry she once controlled. She spent her days now volunteering quietly at a shelter for struggling families, far from her old glass office towers. At first, she flinched at the smell of instant noodles and old blankets, so different from her marble offices. Slowly, she learned to fold donated clothes without complaint. She learned to speak softly to tired mothers waiting in line for food. The experience stripped away her old arrogance, piece by piece, leaving something rawer and more honest behind. One volunteer there later said Giselle cried quietly in the storage closet the first week, refusing to explain why. Nobody pushed her to say more. Some lessons, it seemed, needed to be learned in silence. Meanwhile, Malik's small mechanic shop began to grow. Word spread through the neighborhood about the quiet, steady man who fixed cars honestly and never overcharged a struggling customer. Tyson joined him most mornings, learning how to change oil and patch old tires. Ruby started kindergarten. That fall, her backpack replaced with a new one. Still, she kept the old butterfly charm close to her heart every single day. One quiet afternoon, a small package arrived at Malik's apartment door. Inside was a handmade ceramic mug, painted carefully with tiny, delicate butterflies. A short handwritten note was tucked beside it. "A cup of tea can be replaced with money," the note read. "A child's innocence cannot. Thank you for staying silent that day so I could finally see the ugliness inside myself." Ruby held the new mug carefully in both small hands, filling it with warm milk. Morning sunlight caught the painted wings, making them shimmer softly across the kitchen table. Malik sat beside her, gently smoothing down one loose braid. Tyson leaned against the doorway nearby, sipping his own coffee with a relaxed, easy grin. Watching his daughter smile at her new little cup, Malik felt something settle deep inside his chest. Real dignity, quiet and steady, had outlasted every ounce of empty wealth and hollow power in that lounge. Outside, a soft breeze pushed through the open kitchen window. It carried the smell of cut grass from a neighbor's yard and the faint sound of children playing somewhere down the street. Ruby hummed her cartoon tune again, tapping her spoon lightly against the rim of her new mug. Tyson set his coffee down and clapped his hands together. "All right, little miss, you ready for pancakes? I'll make them shaped like stars." Ruby's eyes went wide. "Star pancakes?" "Yes, please." Malik laughed, a full and easy sound this time, nothing like the careful, guarded man from months before. He watched Tyson pull out a mixing bowl, flour dusting his sleeves within seconds. Later that morning, Malik walked Ruby to the small park near their building. She ran ahead toward the swings, braids bouncing with each step. He sat on a worn wooden bench, watching her laugh under the wide Georgia sky. He thought about the scar on his neck, the one that had once felt like a curse. Now it felt like proof. Proof that some things, once broken, could still hold everything together. A light wind pushed through the oak trees lining the park path. Leaves rustled softly overhead, and somewhere a dog barked twice before falling quiet again. Ruby called out from the swings, asking her father to push her higher. Malik stood up from the bench and walked over, his boots crunching softly against loose gravel. He placed both hands gently on the swing's chains and gave her a slow, steady push. "Higher, Daddy." Ruby laughed, her braids flying behind her. He obliged, watching her small silhouette rise against the bright afternoon sky. For the first time in a long while, there was nothing left to guard against, nothing left to brace for. Just his daughter's laughter, plain and simple, filling the quiet air around them. Back at their small apartment, that evening, Ruby fell asleep early, tired from a full day of swings and star pancakes. Malik tucked the blanket around her shoulders and set the butterfly charm gently on her nightstand. He stood in the doorway a moment longer, watching her chest rise and fall in slow, peaceful breaths. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then settled into a steady glow. He had protected Ruby's laughter without ever throwing a single punch. And in the end, that quiet victory meant more to him than any medal he had ever earned on any battlefield far from home.